Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. So, listen, Jay, I got to tell you this. That whole lung breathing technique has changed everything for me.
Good.
As far as the vape pen is concerned.
Good deal.
It was, I was drawing it in and then kind of breathing it in, and it was giving me this pain in the lung.
Right.
You know, it was just like, it hurt. And then you showed me the technique where you just got to breathe it right into your lungs, and it works.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you just relax. All you got to do is relax the back of your throat, and
yeah, right.
Sounds like you have some experience there, Andrew.
Welcome, everybody. We're real glad to have you today. This is episode 31. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
I'm Andrew McCready.
And today on Vote Pro Podcast, we have a really terrific conversation with cannabis marketing, well, I guess I can call her a guru, cannabis marketing guru, Celeste Miranda, about the business realities of the burgeoning cannabis industry. And you're going to want to hear all of that. But before we get to that, Jay is going to give us a state-by-state rundown of what's going on in the legislative world of cannabis. And we're going to call that our state-by-state segment. What do you think of that?
That's really creative.
Does that work for you?
Marketing genius.
That shows you the depth of our creativity.
I have a story here about cannabis giant. It's in out of Canada called Canopy Growth, and experiencing a huge jump in revenue. Andrew is going to tell us about Chinese archaeologists who discovered, believe this or not, a blonde stoner in a 2,700-year-old tomb.
Wow.
Now, top that. But first, Andrew, you had some information, some interesting information about elderly Americans and cannabis.
As it turns out, since medical cannabis has been rolling out state by state, a lot of people, elderly people, have started using cannabis instead of prescription medication. Now, this is starting to take place more and more in retirement communities, where the people who manage it are kind of liable. So until now, a lot of them sort of either denied anyone from using it. Obviously, they didn't allow people from using cannabis in the retirement homes, but a lot of them sort of took a "don't ask, don't tell" policy. Mm-hmm. But now there's a retirement community in New York where they're starting a program where they actually help. I don't know if they really help administer, but they help manage it with them. The only thing is they won't buy it or keep it for them. Each resident has to have their own stash, basically. So now there's some problems. Now, with really elderly people, it could make, if it has a psychotropic effect, make them a little dizzy, they could fall. So that's careful. But there's a 98-year-old woman by the name of Ruth Brune who has... she had bad shoulders. She was in a wheelchair. Her arms, or she had bad leg spasms and problems with her hands. And she decided to try cannabis oil, and she did. And she's quoted as saying, "I don't feel high or stoned. All I know is I feel better when I take it."
Right on, sister.
Well, good. Way to go, Ruth.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Go, girl.
So more and more these retirement communities are starting cannabis programs for their elderly people. And all these people are saying, God, I'm off the morphine. I stopped taking all this stuff and I feel better. Not only do I physically managing the pain better, but I'm in better spirits, emotionally, mentally. I'm in a better place.
I can only imagine that would be true. I mean, if you were taking, narcotics every day, it's going to wear you down.
I know.
God, yeah.
I go to my mother's retirement community every day. and I have been for years. And I see these patients, and some of them you just see them just sort of, and I say hello.
Vegetables.
There's one lady I talk to all the time, but she's never uttered a word to me.
Wow.
Yeah, she's on the nod.
Yeah, man.
I don't know. I can only imagine what kind of drugs they have them on. And the people that work at these places really want to help. They're really nice people. So it'd be interesting to see how this evolves.
Yeah. One of these days when, we have one or two marbles left up there and
You have 2 left? Good for you.
yeah, well, maybe, I hope we'll have access to
I think we
whatever
will.
we need on that regard because, God willing, we're all going to be that age or close.
Well, one of the
enough.
giants in the cannabis industry is investing in a retirement community, and that is Jimmy Buffett.
Right.
Right.
I heard that,
Where
yeah.
it's a retirement community that's cannabis friendly right out of the bat.
Sweet.
Now I'm talking a lot of people that are in their 70s and 80s and 90s. But there's a lot of people in these retirement communities in their 70s and 80s that are still very active.
Yeah.
Still driving. And they're smoking
Sure.
probably recreationally,
Sure, on the golf course, baby.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, send us your comments, send us your questions. If we've messed up and said something inaccurate, don't let that go. Clear the air, show us the evil of our ways, and send us a comment. And to do that, just go to VoteProPot.com.
You can send us an email at votepropot@gmail.com or call our message line at 240-257-2441.
And please follow, and share us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Speaking of cannabis giants, the international cannabis company out of Canada, known as Canopy Growth, just saw its revenue shoot up to $8.2 million Canadian. That's $6.1 million American in just the last 9 months of 2018. Now that's a nearly 6-fold increase over the same period the year before, according to the company's third quarter fiscal 2019 results.
Well, didn't the legalization affect that?
I can only guess that it must have, Let's see. International sales represented 5.6% of the gross revenue for the quarter, more than doubling the 2.5% from a year earlier. So it's something clearly happened in 2018, and I guess we're seeing that's what it was. The international sales that have grown that much are primarily to guess what country? What country do you think is getting most of the international sales from Canada?
Man, no,
Germany.
Germany, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
accounted for 16% of medical marijuana sales.
Never would have guessed that.
So Germany is importing medical cannabis from Canada.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Israel is exporting. We know the UK is exporting. And is America, you can't even take it over a friggin' state line.
No.
Yep.
You said it before, and I'm sure we'll hear it again. We're getting left behind.
Oh, yeah.
But hopefully not from.
Yeah, but we're like 75% of the sales.
Yeah, that's what's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
The world
just
sales.
within our borders. Sales of medical cannabis overseas, especially in Europe, are a big part of the value prop for many publicly traded Canadian marijuana companies whose valuations have soared in recent years, based mostly on high expectations in international markets. So the legality of cannabis use by Canadians doesn't seem to be the story here.
It's the exports.
Europe. The exports, yep. And I'm sure to America, too, to some degree.
So are we seeing what happened with alcohol prohibition going on right now? Canada is getting the jump on it. So for generations, or for years and years and years to come, America, there's going to be this Canadian weed that's going to be well established
Right.
that we're going to be importing.
Yeah, Canopy Growth is the Canadian mist, or the Seagrams
right.
of cannabis.
Exactly.
And we're going to see it come from Central and South America, too. Just watch. Just watch. Mexico, they're going to jump on it. Because when they decide to do something, they do it. Where in America, we got to do studies and surveys and,
environmental impact.
Right.
Right. It takes forever.
Yep.
It took 1 year to build the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that in 20 years now.
Nope.
There are a lot of folks who are looking at cannabis stocks, pot stocks, and this is one company that I've been looking at personally that a lot of people have, and
I have as well.
I think we talked about it last week, and Celeste is going to talk about it some in the interview coming up. That this might be a great time to jump in.
People have been smoking weed for a while recreationally. They're learning now. In China, they've discovered a ancient tomb that is 2,700 years old, and the body in the tomb was of a 40-year-old Caucasian blonde man. And buried with him was a stash of cannabis. Now, it just wasn't a bag of hemp, and it just wasn't a small bag. It was like 1 3/4 pounds. I mean, it was a big stash.
Maybe he was a dealer.
And so the archaeologists said that it was well preserved. It was still green. It had, but it had lost its aroma and taste. Which now makes me wonder, how did you know what it tastes like unless you smoked it? Anyway, I've got a 1 3/4. You're going to pitch that stash, man. Come on,
Yeah, nobody's going to know. Roll a quick doob here.
So what was it? This was some serious bud? Or
So they analyzed it, and it was flower, and it was unpollinated female flower, so it's sinsemilla.
Sinsemilla, wow.
And to have a 1 3/4 sinsemilla means they're growing it specifically for the high THC content. And
This is 2,700 years ago?
Yeah.
We had a hard time getting sinsemilla in high school. This guy was way ahead of his time, man. I'm impressed.
Now,
yeah, we're talking back in Solomon's day. Okay, that's how far back we're going. Along or somewhere like that.
Well, archaeologists, and the first time archaeologists have come across cannabis, but a lot of time it's hemp. In certain cultures, they found,
right.
3,000 euro in, I forgot where it was. I think, no, it's in Europe. They'd found a 3,000-year-old hemp rope.
Okay.
Right. And certain areas, they used it for canvas and fabric and for rope.
Right.
And now, but in China and India, they're finding more and more they were using it for medicinal purposes. But then again, what is a blonde-haired guy, 40-year-old guy?
The fuck?
You know what it is? I think Spicoli...
Where did he come from, man?
Spicoli fell through some kind of time rift,
Yeah, that's what it was.
And there was a skateboard in the tomb as well.
And a pizza.
And a Domino's box, yeah.
Well, it was opening up the Silk Roads to what is this, Marco Olofsson or something.
But that also proves that people traveled. Obviously the guy probably
right.
Oh yeah,
probably wasn't born there. I don't think there were like blonde hair guys living in China 3,000 years ago. But
right,
no, you don't get too many Chinese people named Rusty.
Right. Well, I heard that they did they analyzed some of the mummies found in Egypt, and they tested positive for cannabis and cocaine.
Whoa.
So
party animals.
So I mean, it was used all around.
So when we say time immemorial, we mean it. This has been, people have been consuming this since prehistory, just about.
So, guys, we're going to start a segment where we kind of give an update on current events, let's say, legislative events per state. So we got a few here. We couldn't do them all because there's so much going on right now. It'd be the whole show. But some of the bigger ones.
And we're calling it state by state until one of our listeners can come up with a better name.
There you go. Which shouldn't take long. All right, we're going to start with West Virginia. And this is from Marijuana Moment by Kyle Yeager. A bill that provides state protections for banks that deal with medical marijuana revenue was approved overwhelmingly by the West Virginia House of Delegates on Friday. Introduced by Delegate Eric Nelson as a Republican, the legislation authorizes the state treasurer to open a bidding process for banks and other financial institutions that are willing to process the fees, penalties, taxes that are be collected in the state's medical marijuana program. So this is great news. We talk about it all the time, how all companies have to deal all in cash in the cannabis industry. So West Virginia is ahead of the curve a little bit here.
Yeah.
It's West Virginia House Bill 2538. If you live in West Virginia, go to our comments underneath, and there'll be a link that you can click so you can contact your local representative to encourage them to support the banking bill.
Absolutely. Good point, Andrew. And that's the case with all these. Go to our website, and you can get in touch with your legislators and tell them you give a shit, because it makes a big difference. The next state we're doing is New Hampshire.
Absolutely. By
a close vote of 10-9, the House Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee gave thumbs up to House Bill number 481 that would legalize the use of marijuana for people age 21 and over. So that's a huge step. We're looking at...
That's adult use.
Yeah,
okay.
Adult use, recreational. In New Hampshire, I don't think a vote on the bill has been scheduled yet. But the fact that it made it through committee is great news. So if you're in New Hampshire, for God's sakes, call your representative and let them know you want them to vote yes on House Bill 481. All right. The next state we got here, Pennsylvania. This is great. This is something we've seen come up a couple times in different states. Should recreational marijuana be legal in Pennsylvania? State lawmakers want your input. So Governor Tom Wolf has set up an online feedback form where residents can submit their feedback on legalizing recreational marijuana. The feedback form includes a portion for residents to say if they are for or against legalizing marijuana for recreational purposes. They can elect to elaborate on their position in 5,000 characters or less. So I'm going to put a link on our show description to the form. So if you're in Pennsylvania, jump on that link, go to the form and say, hell yes, we're for it. Because it's going to make a difference.
Just yes.
It's definitely going to make, not just yes,
hell yes.
Hell yes.
And also when you make these comments, tell them that you vote pro-pot. And if their candidates are voting against it, they're not going to get your vote.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly. It makes a difference. Trust me. It really does. Politicians care big time when they hear from their constituents pro or con on a bill. Next is Oregon.
As well they should.
Oregon Senate schedules a hearing on a bill to allow cannabis lounges and marijuana farm tours. So we've talked about this in different states. Of course, Oregon's kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of states as far as legalization goes. So what it is, a state Senate committee will hold a hearing at the end of this month. I think it's next Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, February 28th. They'll hold a hearing that would allow cannabis lounges where marijuana could be legally consumed. So that's very cool. So you could have, a public place you can go, shoot pool, get a beer, and smoke a joint. Pretty cool. Also, it would allow growers.
Kind of a little cannabis cafe.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're talking about. Also, it would allow growers to give tours. Now, that would be cool.
Like a vineyard.
All right. Because right now, just like a vineyard. Exactly. So they could have, like Andrew said, just like a vineyard, you would go to the grow operation. You could test it. They would have sampling, have live music. So very cool idea.
This is a perfect example of how they're trying to set up legislation that is going to help the cannabis tourism industry.
Absolutely. This is Senate Bill 639, and it's sponsored by State Senator Floyd Prozansky of Eugene, along with a couple others. So if you're in Oregon, let them know. Go to the hearing. It's next Thursday, and I couldn't find the exact location, but I assume it's at the government. What is it? The State House.
At the State House.
Look it up. Yeah. And finally, some bad news. And who is this from? North Dakota. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, really. Marijuana decriminalization narrowly rejected by North Dakota lawmakers. By a close margin, rejected a bill that would decriminalize low-level marijuana possession in the state on Wednesday. So North Dakota has been a tough one. And what's interesting is I've noticed in North in North Dakota that a lot of the legislation that's come up is by Republicans. I assume that's because the state house is full of Republicans in North Dakota. I don't know that for a fact. You, Phil? I don't know, but I assume it's a heavily Republican state. I could be wrong.
No, North Dakota is a pretty red state.
Yeah, pretty red state.
You know, this sounds like bad news. And for the people who live in North Dakota who want to consume cannabis legally, it is bad news. Mm-hmm. But this is also part of what, you know, the United States, what makes it work is federalism. You know, if you don't want to live where, you know, cannabis is legal, well, you can live in North Dakota or somewhere else. Sure. I mean, not every state is going to legalize it. And not everybody in the world thinks, or in America thinks that's a good idea. But, you know, if you want to live, if people of South Dakota want to make it legal right. or decriminalized or whatever they want to do, well, that's up to the people of South Dakota. And I think that's, you know, that's how things are supposed to work.
Well, yeah.
Don't you think?
I agree.
I'll tell you, it was only a couple of years ago where you would have thought there's no way that the government of North Dakota was even going to consider voting on it.
Yeah,
the fact
right.
that they're voting
exactly.
on it is a good sign.
And it was close, Andrew.
Right, and there are states just as red as North Dakota that are decriminalizing and legalizing.
Well, some of them have ballot initiatives, so the legislature really doesn't have. The only thing they can do is change it after the people pass it.
After the fact, yeah.
Right.
The legislation introduced by Republican Shannon Rowers-Jones, a Republican, would have removed criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce or 2 cannabis plants, instead of the current misdemeanor offense punishable by up to 30 days in jail and a $1,500 fine. So, and the vote was very close. It was 43-47. So it's moving in the right direction there, but it's still...
All right. Well, progress.
Not there. Phil made a great point. If you don't like it, freaking move. You know?
Right. Move. As cannabis legislation plods its way forward in America, what was once a largely criminal enterprise is now coming out into the mainstream in the form of a burgeoning legal cannabis industry. Here to discuss that with us today, we have as our guest a sought-after marketer, speaker, and cannabis industry thought leader, Celeste Miranda. Welcome, Celeste, and thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
First and foremost, Les, how are you feeling?
I'm doing great. You know, it was interesting because I had one of those horrible colds I think that everybody gets in the winter and the flu season, and I just couldn't kick it for a minute.
Oh, yeah. But, it kind of ravaged our, and now you're over there in sunny Southern Cal, right?
Yeah, we're actually in Central California, about an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara in Pismo Beach. So,
Okay. Very nice. I used to live in Los Angeles, so I love that area.
Nice. Yeah.
So now I understand you have some personal experience with medical marijuana, correct?
I do, and CBD.
Tell us about that.
I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And that kind of, at the same time, it was weird how the timing happened, but I was also changing my marketing firm over from mainstream into the cannabis industry. And so it was at that same time where I also learned that I was diagnosed with MS.
Okay.
And so I definitely became a believer when I was able to get off all of the muscle relaxers that Stanford had me on, and instead started using CBD. Wow. And so, yeah, it was it's a personal story and personal experience for me.
Yeah. So now, were you already involved in the cannabis industry, or is this what got you involved with it?
You know, that's what was weird. It was really at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I was transitioning my firm, and during that transition into the cannabis industry is right when I found out I had MS. So it was weird. It all happened at the same time.
Okay, and the treatments you have with the CBD, is that working well for you?
It is. I have been through 3 different medications as far as pharmaceuticals for MS. I started with Tecfidera. That almost gave me a rare brain infection, PML. And then they put me on Copaxone. That wasn't strong enough. I had 2 relapses. And for the past about year and a half, I've been on Tysabri, monthly infusions that I go in for. That seems to, I haven't had any new lesions since that. So it seems to be working.
Good.
And that's all I do today, that plus CBD.
Okay.
So yeah, CBD seems to take care of my spasticity. And, I do fine just on those 2 now. I'm doing well.
That's great. That's fantastic. Now, tell us about the Cannabis Marketing Lab, TCML. What do you do and how long have you been doing it?
The Cannabis Marketing Lab, I had a mainstream marketing firm for about 10 years. I did a lot of law firms, hair salons, things like that. And then about 8.5 years ago, I switched everything over to cannabis marketing, only for cannabis companies. And I did that because I could kind of see the forest through the trees and what was going to happen with the cannabis industry. And I took a big chance. That was before any of the legalizations or anything like that. Everybody thought it was crazy.
Wow.
And
that was a big chance.
Yeah, it was a big risk, but I'm glad I took it. It worked out well, obviously. I'm very grateful. And so the Cannabis Marketing Lab, TCML, has been in existence now for about 8.5 years. We do marketing for cannabis, hemp, CBD products. We dip our feet quite a bit in the scientific end of things. We have about 40 clients in 5 different countries.
Wow. Very nice. Very nice. Now, and I see that you offer a pretty comprehensive array of services: branding, writing, design, SEO, digital, social media strategies, just to name a few. What do you find clients are asking for most, and what do you find they actually really need the most?
It's interesting because probably right now, clients all want the same thing. They all want to increase their sales.
Sure.
And so, they try to get there via way of marketing, and so what we're asked for the most is, I would say, to increase exposure in an effort to increase sales. What we're finding, we're getting the best ROI right now in the cannabis industry would be email marketing. For a lot of our clients, email marketing seems to work well. Obviously, SEO is a big one because we can only do organic marketing. We can't yet get Facebook ads or Google ads or anything like that.
Okay.
So there's still some barriers to entry to marketing cannabis products for sure.
Yeah. Now I know about the Facebook ads. VoteProPot has been trying to do it. It was a battle for us too. So
right.
When you started, as you mentioned, you already had years of experience in traditional marketing. What aspects of marketing, if any, have you found to be unique to the cannabis industry? Or is it all just kind of the same stuff?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is the same stuff. But I can tell you that a lot of it is different too. I think mainly because of those barriers to entry, what you can and can't do, and the things that the hurdles that you come up against. I would say those are the biggest game changer. In addition to that, you have a product or an industry that isn't accepted by everyone, yet at this point.
Right.
And so that's another challenge. And then I would say on top of that, you have a lack of data that you're dealing with on the consumer end. And so that is challenging as well in this particular industry, just because it's so new. There's such a lack of data right now.
Tell us more about that. What kind of data? Like best practices or just research data, that kind of thing?
Definitely research data, more so on the consumer end of things, where, we know that The millennials like this, the baby boomers lean towards this, towards topicals or whatever.
Right.
But it's interesting because it's such a new industry that we can take a product and we can say, okay, this product is a CBD salve. And we can say, we know for the most part, it's going to be attractive or apply to A, baby boomers, and B, athletes. We can kind of narrow it down at that way right now, but still that's so vague and it's such an overall picture, that's the kind of data that we're lacking still.
So it's not the same kind of hard and fast metrics that you would get with a traditional industry.
Exactly. And we're constantly collecting it. It's coming in. But yeah, it's just we're missing that piece right now too.
Okay. Are there any common misconceptions out there that you and your clients deal with? I mean, among clients? All the time?
Yeah. You know what I'd say, Phil? I'd say mainly it has to do with CBD when it comes to the CBD products and people thinking that CBD is still psychoactive, can get you high. And it definitely can. That's not the problem. If you take enough of anything, like that, that has a base of cannabis, it can get you high. But you would have to take so much that the dosage would be crazy. And so to me, the biggest misconception as far as CBD products and educating that it is non-psychoactive and that, no, it doesn't just randomly make you high.
Yeah, I think that's a big one to get across. A very big one.
It is. I have so many older people when I speak a lot at conferences, and I have so many older people who said, oh yeah, that's the stuff my son was all high on in high school, and it's just so funny to educate. No, that wasn't it. But okay.
So tell us about your speaking engagements. What kinds of venues are you asked to speak at, and what's some of the topics you cover there?
So I'm asked to speak at a lot of the larger industry conferences that go on, and I'm usually asked to speak on where the majority of my credibility stands, which is marketing in the cannabis industry and how to increase your sales, your exposure, that sort of thing. But now, obviously, my firm has diversified to have our own events as well. And so that's been a lot of fun learning the whole event side of the industry for sure. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun, actually.
It is.
Now, you've also written a lot about solutions for CBD and cannabis startups that and many that may be operating on a shoestring, correct?
That's very true. Now it's there because there's so many people in this space, Phil, trying to just get into it some way, somehow. And for a while, back a little bit, there was no seed money. There were no investors. It was so new and everyone was so scared, and there were still black market attachments. But now that's changing a little bit. So that's good.
Well, that's good. Now, when I started out in marketing, that's what I do for a living as well. The big trend back then was something called guerrilla marketing, a term coined by J. Conrad Levinson back in the 80s. You're familiar with guerrilla marketing. Are there some concepts there that your clients can apply?
There are. And, a lot of this is grit. And, it's guerrilla, it's grit. It's all that clawing of space and that sort of thing. And, a lot of times the guerrilla tactics are just ways to market your product or your service without a vehicle that has already been created.
Okay.
And when I say that, when it comes to guerrilla marketing, to me, really feel it just equals time. Guerrilla marketing takes your time because you're doing things yourself. You're doing just the little things, the small things. You're chipping away here and there, but you're not just jumping on a vehicle like Facebook ads or something like that doesn't take any time and is quick and easy. And guerrilla marketing is just chipping away at things that take your time,
right? And not trying to go head to head against the leader in the industry, which can be a few.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now, looking at your website. CelesteMiranda.com. What strikes me first is, well, you. You appear very playful, and you seem to love what you're doing and have a lot of fun at this, right?
I do. And, it's so funny because I was just talking to one of our venues and for one of our events, and the event manager at the hotel. And she was just telling me, oh, another day. I have to come into this job. It's so busy here. Yeah. Oh, my God. And, all I could think was, wow, I got to my office at 4:30 this morning, couldn't wait to get up and get here.
Absolutely.
And get to work. And I thought, wow, we live on totally different planets. And I love what I do. And the playfulness comes out with that. Mm-hmm. I'm very casual. Mm-hmm. My staff is very casual. We're at the beach. We wear shorts and T-shirts to work. And,
oh, man.
And, yeah. And
I want your job.
It's fun for me. I have fun. And, I think why I have so much fun too, Phil, is because it's personal. It's personal for me. This isn't a job. This is my mission. This is what I do. This is who I am. I don't believe just things happen randomly. I believe that I have MS for a reason. And I'm doing my best to educate people on other ways that they could find relief, that they can find help. And so this is fun for me. It's not work.
Well, you are precisely the kind, and your business is precisely the kind that I would want to work with just for that reason alone. Now, I look at your business website, the cannabismarketinglab.com, and, it's focused more on providing business solutions, but at the same time, that same kind of fun element definitely carries over. And that's, I think, and I don't know if your clients have expressed this to you, but, people love doing business with people who love what they do.
That's very true. That's very, very true. And that's the part of marketing that you just can't teach, as you know. It's a part of marketing that you just can't make happen. These people come to people like yourself and myself day in and day out, and they're saying, help. And we can help. We can do a lot. But we just can't give them that piece if they're missing it, and that passion and that playfulness and that drive and that ability to enjoy what they're doing if it's missing.
No.
And that just, in the end, that comes out to so much,
Well, I'm sure it does. It sounds like a fun place to work and fun stuff to be doing. Now, looking forward, how do you see 2019 shaping up for you and for the cannabis industry?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's, the Farm Bill started us off. That changed some things in the industry. I see, as far as rec in the cannabis industry, the recreational movement, it's going to go forward. It's going to bring in money for counties, for states, and all of.
We call that adult use now.
That's right, adult use.
You got to get the nomenclature right.
Yes, and adult use will chip at its way state by state. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just going to go at the pace that it's going to go. I think 2019 will see a huge, huge surge in CBD.
Okay.
I think industrial hemp to an extent. And then I also think that we will begin in 19 and 20 to begin to see a very interesting entry onto the playing field with other cannabinoids.
Really?
Absolutely. Like CBN, CBC, CBG, all these things. And I think that there's so much that will be discovered with these other cannabinoids. CBD is the big one right now. It's the one everyone knows. But in the end, I don't think that it will be the biggest player. There was a pharmacist the other day that told me that soon CBC will be used in the majority of pharmaceutical drugs because it allows whatever drug is being targeted to be carried 3 times faster for delivery.
Is that right? That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's amazing. And then of course you have CBN that is doing all these sleep studies, and there's so much with sleep being studied around CBN. And so I think 19 and 20 will really have upswings in this type of research, honestly.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. And there are, folks who believe in what they call the entourage effect or the ensemble effect, where the entire plant is what's really efficacious about the treatment, and all of those compounds and more that you mentioned. How do you see that? Is that something you're familiar with?
Absolutely. And with CBD now, you have full spectrum versus isolate, a lot of studying going on there and different experiments, things like that. But definitely the entourage effect, Dr. Yakubas Zaburkis, he's out of University of Houston. He was one of the people who taught me the relevancy and the importance of the entourage effect. And so even with CBDs, I do think that a little bit of THC in there does kick up the efficacy of that. And, there's so much study left to be done, so much research, but I definitely think that there is a scientific basis behind the entourage effect. And I also think that soon there'll be blends and mixings of things like CBN with melatonin, things like that. If you really want to hit a sleep study and things like that, there's so much that's coming up.
Well, it's going to be pretty exciting. Do you foresee a rescheduling or descheduling by the federal government in 2019?
No, not in 2019. I don't, honestly. I think maybe in 2 to 3 years. Okay. I would guess, but they'll make us suffer a bit more.
Yeah, and they'll finally see the light or feel the heat.
Exactly.
As this whole process goes on, as various states have written laws for medical and adult use, in your opinion, what are some of the things you see that legislators are doing right, and what do you wish they'd do differently?
Every day that I wake up and look at the news feed, I see more and more governors, senators supporting the movement. And I think all that really I can ask at this point that they do differently is, if you're going to support the movement, that's great. I mean, there's nothing more that can be asked. But if at the very, very least, if we can just get the government officials to support the research, right, then that's at the very minimum what we need for them to do. And the thing is it's a catch-22. To support the research, it has to be descheduled. Yeah. And so I think that this will be the push and pull as we go forward. But at the very least, if we can just get the government officials to support the research, that's what we need.
What would you ask our listeners to do to help, push and establish fair and reasonable cannabis laws?
Every person needs to do their own research. And I highly, highly encourage that. Just like I think every person needs to do their own trial, with cannabis, and their own research with the use of cannabis. Mm-hmm. If you're tentative to use cannabis, I know I was, at first, then start with a CBD, with a high ratio CBD product, and keep the dosaging small. Start small, start microdosing, move up from there. You'll see that, it does make you feel good, that it helps with aches or pains or inflammation that you have, and then from there, play with your ratios, play with your dosages, experiment yourself. So if you're saying that you don't support it, know why you don't support it. Mm-hmm. At least try for yourself, have a firsthand experience and see. And so, for the listeners, I would just say, understand what it is you're against, or understand what it is you're for. This isn't for under 18 use, any adult use. It is not. We have to be very careful how we lead children into this. Yes, it does help with epilepsy, with seizures. We know that. But, as we approach the children with it, we have to be careful, and we have to research that. We have to make sure that we're doing all the right things. And so I would just ask them to do your research to help support this, because I'm sure once the research is done, people will see that it's definitely a medicine that can help.
Well, that sounds like great advice, Celeste. And I'm sure there are people listening who want to find out more. Tell us how folks can find you.
I can be found on, first of all, LinkedIn, Celeste Miranda. I'm very active on there. Mm-hmm. Second of all, the website for the marketing firm is the cannabismarketinglab.com. Our biggest event is the CBD Expo Tour. That can be found at cbdexpo.net. I also own Terpenes and Testing Magazine, Extraction Magazine, CBD Health and Wellness. A Google search will bring up any of those as well.
Wow, you really must get up at 4:30 in the morning.
I do.
Well, that's great. Now, so aside from what you do for a living, what are some other things you do enjoy in your non-professional life? Oh,
wow. I don't even know what that is anymore. I'm very athletic, so I do lots of sports and active outdoor activities. And, I enjoy hanging out with my family, friends, my staff. I have to say, they are my friends and family as well. I've got one of the best teams that anyone could ever ask for.
That's wonderful.
So they're fun to hang out with too. But I have to say, today work consumes the majority of my life. So
but you love it, so that's a good thing.
I love it.
We've been speaking with marketer, author, and cannabis thought leader Celeste Miranda. Check out the show description for links to celestemiranda.com and to the cannabismarketinglab.com. And if you're in need of superlative cannabis marketing expertise, we sure hope you'll give it a look. And if you mention VoteProPot-Cast, Celeste will offer you a very friendly greeting, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Once again, Celeste, thank you so much for speaking with us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. All the best to you in 2019, and let's keep in touch.
Oh my gosh, Phil, thank you so much for this opportunity. You are wonderful. I think the world of you as well. And you take care of yourself too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I think that was that was a great job, Phil. That was a great interview. I was fascinated by the what she commented about CBD research, especially about the CBD that when isolated, it can be used to increase the effectiveness of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I think that was CB. There was other CBN, CBG, CBC. There's a lot of cannabinoids, a lot of compounds, and I think that if you can use that in conjunction with other things. She said something about using it with melatonin as a sleep aid. I mean, there's so much that and I really agree that the thing that really needs to happen is the research. Once again, folks, there is so much to do, and things are happening, and you're going to want to get involved and be part of the solution. Definitely check us out at VoteProPot.com.
Send us an email at VoteProPot@gmail.com.
And please follow, and share us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just do a search for VoteProPot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J. I said, I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old sense media at the beginning of the day. Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old sense media at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old sense media